Straight ahead on Valley News Live, watch as a Minnesota man detained for 10 days in Russia is welcomed home.
Plus, how one lawmaker in North Dakota hopes to help the state while helping refugees from Ukraine.
And we sit down with the new face of Bush's dog beer and her humans. Valley News Live at 10 starts right now.
This is Valley News Live at 10.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Betty.
And I'm Stacy Van Dyke. Icy conditions tonight may make for a rocky commute in the morning. Let's head straight over to Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson for what's next. Hutch?
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Justin. And good evening, everyone. A lot to talk about tonight. Number one, we're going to update you on our wintry storm today, but we also have a chance at some northern lights. So we'll update you right now on that as well. Here are a few measurements. We'll make this full screen so you can see your area's snowfall reports better. Now, if you're not seeing your town's report, if you're in the area, we didn't get a report from every single town. 9.9 inches, though, in the Lake Ida area. The big grand winner, how about Callaway at 8 inches in the Cormorant area as well. So a lot of 7 to 10 inch reports out there in Lakes Country where we had mentioned that. Now there's a few areas that, including Fargo, got 4 to 6.5 inches of snow. Abercrombie, 2 inlets, Bemidji picking up 5.5 for Babe the Blue Ox out there as well. Now, it's cold. We have wet roads. We have slushy roads, temperatures below freezing. That means slippery roads will continue tonight as we look on in the FM area. Now I'm going to switch the camera around. Notice we're socked in with clouds. Not a good chance to see the northern lights here tonight, but this is Grand Forks, thin clouds, and from time to time we see peaks of sky, and this is Devil's Lake where the clouds have broke, and there will be a decent chance tonight of some strong northern lights. So if you get out there and get a chance to see them, we'd love to have you upload your photos to Valley News Live, of course, just like you did for the winter storm. Here's the deal. Tonight is a chance of northern lights, but all the way until Friday, we're going to have a chance of northern lights. So even though you may not see them tonight, well, we'll update you on where the best chance of viewing will be. Hint, it's out to the west, and we'll have your forecast, which looks much warmer, by the way, as opposed to today's wintry mess.
I like the sound of that. Thanks, Hutch.
New developments tonight in a story we've been following since January. The man charged with human smuggling after 4 migrants froze to death near the Canadian border during a blizzard will stand trial in Fergus Falls this summer. Court documents filed today show Steve Shand's trial is scheduled to begin July 18th. Shand has not been charged in the deaths of the migrants who died of exposure. The bodies were discovered near Emerson, Manitoba, which borders Minnesota and North Dakota. 5 more Indian nationals were also found on foot on the Minnesota side of the border, and 2 others were discovered nearby riding in Shand's van. They've since been released pending deportation hearings. Federal authorities suspect that the case is linked to a much larger smuggling operation.
Now to our continuing coverage of the war on Ukraine. That's a Minnesota man named Tyler Jacobs surprising his mom at home today. He is now free from Russian forces after being detained at a border checkpoint in Crimea for 10 days.
Yeah, he says he was imprisoned because they thought he might be a spy.
The following day, they had a court hearing for me, and they charged me. And the moment that I knew that, my heart just sank, and I'm like, I'm going to be stuck in Russia here forever.
More than 3.5 million people have fled Ukraine since the invasion began, and while many have gone to neighboring countries like Poland and Romania, one state senator wants to see more of them end up here in North Dakota.
Valley News Team's Aaron Walling explains.
We're of welcoming people. What we have to do is translate those well wishes, those ideals into action.
North Dakota State Senator Tim Matherin says refugees from Ukraine can help with the labor shortage and provide them with a stable environment as they deal with the humanitarian crisis in their home country.
I know there are a lot of families here that have reached out and said, hey, I'd be willing to take folks in. I mean, it's a traumatic situation, and it pulls at my heartstrings.
Commerce Commissioner James Lamont says there are roughly 30,000 unfilled jobs in the state, and he wants to see different organizations come together to help refugees find the right avenues to get them the help they need.
It would be really helpful if it were a joint private sector-led initiative to identify those particular skill sets as well as people, because one thing you don't want to do is underutilize people to their full capacity, especially someone that's gone through a traumatic experience and is moving halfway across the world into a place that is, foreign.
The Biden administration recently announced plans to welcome in about 100,000 refugees, as well as cash assistance and other programs to help while they're hosted in different countries. And Mathern says it is time to take action and to welcome in those in need.
It says to me there are people willing to work on this, but now we need to get to act. And that's the step we're at right now.
The Biden administration hasn't announced a timetable for when these refugees are set to arrive in the U.S.
Today, President Biden did announce the U.S. is launching a one-stop shop for information on COVID-19 test sites, masks, antiviral pills, and vaccines. It's called covid.gov. CDC is now also recommending Americans age 50 and up, as well as those with weakened immune systems, receive a second booster shot, fourth shot. For most people, COVID numbers have been falling across the U.S. for a couple months now, but they are starting to tick back up in some spots thanks to a new variant.
Tonight, the FBI is investigating after a 6-year-old was found dead in Fort Totten. The Bureau tells Valley News Live the boy was found Sunday near his home, appearing to have been bitten by an animal. They're doing an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death. The boy's name has not been released. An online post from the boy's mother said dogs were involved.
Official charges were filed today against the Minnesota man accused of stabbing his new wife to death, then driving 200 miles to Fargo to hide from police. 44-year-old James Nayanta is now charged with second-degree murder. He'll remain in custody in Cass County until he can be extradited back to the Twin Cities area. If convicted, he faces up to 40 years behind bars. Champlin police in Minnesota say his wife, 35-year-old Pichu Yates, was found dead of multiple stab wounds Monday night. Court documents say Nayanta was being investigated for criminal sexual conduct, so Yates and her children were staying with other family in Champlin. Documents also say Yates had a no-contact order against him at the time of her death. The Moorhead School Board Boundary Task Force has now presented its plan to move some elementary school boundaries in the district. It comes after 6 weeks of research. They presented 4 different scenarios, but they all involve some children shifting schools.
It's hard for me as a parent to stay organized at times, so I can imagine being little and not knowing, like, oh, is today an on day, an off day? Do I wear a mask? Oh, masks aren't needed anymore. And then now, am I going back to my old school, and will I see my friends again? It's just so much for a little kiddo to have to deal with.
At the board meeting, one parent who is on the task force said it was a hard decision, but is ultimately what's best for the community.
A Wahpeton woman is sharing her story of survival tonight in hopes of saving others from going through the same nightmare and heartache as she did. Cindy Urbis says she avoided a colonoscopy in 2020 despite dealing with what she called annoying cramping, a decision she regretted 1 year later when doctors forced her to get the procedure and soon diagnosed her with stage 3 colon cancer.
What I want people to know now is that a colonoscopy is so much easier than chemotherapy.
It's a truly moving story. You can watch that full story right on our website, valleynewslive.com, or on your VNL News app. It's free in the App Store.
We told you last night Trollwood Performing Arts has postponed its main stage summer musical for another year because of staff shortages and rising costs.
Today, their executive director describes how they're feeling.
It is absolutely devastating. I didn't think we would ever have to do that again. People are really sad. People that are connected really directly to Trollwood, people that are they just love coming to the show. So I think it's a real eye-opening experience for the community to say, wow, this isn't happening.
She adds it's disheartening having to shut down the musical again after having missed out on the last couple years because of COVID.
Well, here's a feel-good story out of the western side of the state. A Watford City High School senior invited his great-great-grandmother to his high school prom this weekend. Is actually 92-year-old Madeline Miller's first prom. She only went to a year and a half of high school. Her dad got sick. She had to drop out to help on the farm. But her great-grandson, Dakota Wallen, drove her there in a 1985 Ford that she'd handed down to him. They were a hit.
She's beautiful.
Absolutely.
What a couple. Later here on Valley News Live at 10, we'll meet a dog from Prom who now has an agent and is the face of a new dog beer.
All right, yeah. Hey, we had a rough forecast today out in Lakes Country. A lot of snow there, and wow, almost 10 inches right here in the Cormorant area as well. Hey, the river level even in Oslo coming down. Still moderate flood stage there. Some real flooding in that area is the most problematic area across the valley. Your updated forecast looks a whole lot better. Could be the northern lights tonight too. I'll update everything next.